Welcome to Jenkins and Jonez on the Volume Podcast Network. It is Thursday, January 23rd, and we are not live because is it YouTube's broken, Jackson? What's broken?
It's all broken, bro.
Okay, everything's
It's all
broken,
bad.
but we're very excited to be joined by special guest and friend of the show, Chris Long of Greenlight. Chris, thanks for hopping on, bro.
Thank y'all. It's good to see y'all.
Yes, sir. Good to have you on, my boy, man. It's been a minute since we chopped it up. We homies, we texting all that shit, but it's good to see you, man. How was everything?
It's good to see you too, man. I was telling y'all offline, just the season's super long. You know, only 2 games to break down this week. It's a thing of beauty. And then we got one more and the off season time. So I can't wait, man.
Are you fully like on the media side now to where it's just like it's a grind? That's always like the sports writer thing is like all I'm rooting for is it doesn't go to overtime, you know?
Oh, no, I'm not like that. I mean, I love what I do. Like I love watching football. It's kind of how I justify doing the job, right? Like it allows me to be like, hey babe, I'm going to work, like on a Thursday night, like I'm gonna go up to the man cave and watch the game, throw a couple of bucks on the game, that sort of thing. Like a lot of times it doesn't feel like work, but I will tell you just, the inside the NFL thing this year, which has been awesome working with Ocho and Ryan and Bill, is great, but the travel can be, yeah, I just don't like traveling. I don't like being away from the kids. We're doing, as you guys do, like a bunch of live shows. We're doing 3-hour live shows a week. And, so when Sunday kicks off, I don't really stop working until, Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it can kind of wear on you a little bit, but it's not like I work in a coal mine, let's not make podcasting sound like terrible.
Like we're
But hey,
storming the beaches
I
of
get fucking
Normandy or some
tired,
shit.
dude. ADHD, one of the main things about ADHD is burnout, bro.
Yeah.
And I get burnt out like in the middle of the season. I go through these phases of burnout. And so the playoffs came just in time because as I said, during the playoffs, less games. And I watch everything. And I think that's, to be serious, that's the hard part is like I want to do my job well. And I don't want to get caught, you know, with my pants down, so to speak, an uninformed opinion, talk about a player when I don't really know what's going on, talk about a game when I don't know what's going on. So, yeah, there's a lot of pressure to see everything.
Yeah. So, the transition from NFL player to media member, was that something that you had always kind of, had mapped out because, that those are the steps that your pops Howie took,
Yeah,
NFL guy turned media guy. Was that something
yeah,
that you saw for yourself or just something that just kind of sort of happened especially with like the podcast boom that happened
yeah.
recently?
Well, if it weren't for podcasts, probably not. I never wanted to be on TV. I still don't. I mean, I am, but I don't love like being on TV. I kind of like. I think the podcast notoriety is good. Like the podcast fame is good. And I love running into people and being like, hey, I love the pod, that sort of
Mhm.
thing. But when you're on TV, it's like a whole nother deal. And, especially if you're working like ESPN or what have you, every day you got to wake up and make something out of nothing. And you got a producer in your
Yeah.
ear telling you take this side of an argument or whatever. And so the podcasting thing coming along was a real blessing for I think a whole generation of guys like me that wanted to do something after football but didn't want to go coach or something.
Mhm.
Like I couldn't do that. So for me, it was like, let me see what this podcast thing is about. I don't want to work for anybody if I can help it. And so starting like kind of indie while it was really hard, it's paid off over the past few years because although I have to do like boss shit, nobody's telling me what to do. And it's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think, like when you play for so long, talk about burnout, like football burns you out over 2 decades. If you include like high school football, that's kind of where I started working like a professional, because I knew where I had to go. And so if you look at it that way, you've been on the same treadmill for 20 years, and there's the fear of like, what do I do when I get out and the whole thing. And I think sometimes you rush to work because you're like a workaholic, and I worked myself silly the first couple years. I think over the last 5 years, it's been a process of figuring out how to find that work life balance. And I think also for a podcast, man, it's like people can tell if you're not happy. People can
Mhm.
tell if you're not enjoying it. People can tell if it's work to you. So it's about finding that balance. I feel like I'm finally figuring it out where it's like, all right, this is getting easy. Don't make it harder than it needs to be.
For sure. Yeah. Podcast fame is cool. I can honestly say anyone who's approached me from knowing the podcast has always been good vibes, right? Because I feel like if someone listens to your podcast, they're invested in you. They actually appreciate you, your insight, whatever you have you. As opposed to if someone who if you're like a TV talking head, like Stephen A. Smith, I'm sure he gets approached by dudes who just want to argue all the fucking time. Right.
Yeah.
And I cannot imagine that type of fame. I will for sure take those problems with Stephen A.'s bank account. I'm not gonna say I wouldn't, but
For sure.
yeah. But I can imagine that's a whole different thing from like the podcast angle there. So I'll totally see what you're saying there.
But those
bro.
guys got to be immune to criticism. It's like, and I'll admit it, I don't think I'd be mentally tough enough to preach to, everybody in America about my football takes day to day. Like, because there's so much, even if you're right, it's just the volume of criticism and disagreement. At a certain point, you're like, dude, like, what am I here to prove? Like, what I love about a podcast is kind of what you alluded to. Like, people are opted into your content.
Mhm.
You found me. So if you're here, it's not like I'm being shoved, in your face via the TV, and you can't claim that you can't get away from me. If you're watching, that's your choice. And so I really enjoy like owning my own stuff and kind of the way we've come up. So yeah, like the TV stuff, man, I think there's a lot of pressure to that. Like somebody like Stephen A, I think he's immensely talented. But yeah, you do get that kind of like lowest common denominator argument thing going every day. And I don't think sports media needs to be about argument. I think that's what they got wrong. Like when you force arguments and discussions, they feel forced. They look forced.
Yeah.
And the only people you're impressing are people that don't know any better. And I think most people want to be educated on the game. And you can do that in a way that's not confrontational with one another, and not sensationalist. And that's kind of what we do. And so I miss out on some of the big shit where you're not going to see me ranting and raving about something every week, on a social, but I like it that way. I want it to be, I hate fair and balanced now because it's been co-opted, but fair and balanced. No Fox News. It's just fair and
Yeah.
balanced.
Actual being fair and balanced. Yeah. I mean, I think we're all big believers that podcast famous is the correct level of like that's the sweet spot. We all notice I think not too long after we started working for the volume, Colin Cowherd he had like a blood clot or something, didn't he, Jackson? It was a serious medical issue that kept him off of his show for like a week. And the people who listened to his show were horrible. They were like, he's trying to duck accountability because he was wrong about the Ravens, or like just like
Justin Herbert, yeah, this conveniently happens when it's time to walk back to Justin
No,
Herbert.
it was the Ben Simmons take.
yeah,
We're good, LeBron.
yeah.
Hey, and I love Colin. Like Colin to me, and I don't know Colin, but like I actually think that I'm not just blowing smoke. I think
Yeah.
Colin's cool because Colin's okay being wrong.
Yeah.
And he knows he's gonna be wrong all the time. You also have to be okay with when you're filling a 24-hour news cycle every day. You have to be okay with eating some L's, dude.
Yeah. And
I'm not. I don't like losing that much. I'm still competitive. I want to be right. And so,
Yeah.
I don't want to get up there every day and have to just BetMGM is my sponsor, right? I love BetMGM. But they'll send me like, hey, the guys will be like, hey, BetMGM wants you to do a power rankings this week. I'm like, I'm not doing it. Fuck a power rankings. There's no nuance there. There's no like discussion. There's no context. It's just something somebody's going to dangle over my head in 2 weeks. And if you want to call me a coward, so be it. I just didn't sign up to be in a dick measuring contest on righteousness every week. You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
we,
how are we
we
sorting
do.
out these 3-2 and 4-1 teams? Like, like what's
Yeah, bro. Right. Are we kind of? I just don't like doing that boiled down shit. Like, what I love watching the games on Sunday and telling people what I found interesting. And like I'm gonna be wrong about some things. I'm gonna be right about some things. You'll hear some insightful things. But more than anything, people want to hear you have fun. And so I think y'all do a good job of that, and we try to too.
You guys do a great job for sure. Okay, you are Chris. You identify sort of most with the Eagles of the because that's where you finish, or when you sort of look at the teams,
Yeah.
you're rooting for the Eagles. I think I heard you say that's like the team you're kind of pulling for right now.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, anytime you play most of your career someplace, like spend your whole prime someplace where, number one, we lost a lot, like 1-15, 2-14 was kind of the norm. 7 wins was the ceiling. We never went to the playoffs. We never played in primetime games. So, it's tough when you end up getting cut someplace like that and then they move to LA. It doesn't feel like you really have a home base, because the thing for me that I think is really special about playing for a franchise for a long time is you get to know a lot of people in the community. You remember the bars you went to, you remember the restaurants you went to. This is where, this is where I used to take my son to the playground, whatever. Like, and you come back to a place like that, and it feels like home. And so, having never played in LA, it kind of complicates that relationship for me. Now, I don't have any vitriol. Like, there are people in St. Louis that hate Stan Kroenke, and I don't blame them. And there's
Of
people that have
course.
Super Bowl parties without the game on. That's how they feel. But I just don't feel quite that way. Like, I was supposed to go out there to be legend of the game or something like 2 weeks ago before the fires happened, and I was going to do it because I still take pride in like seeing Jared Verse play, Kobe Turner, Young, that whole group up front, Fisk. It reminds me of our old group. Now, I spent the last 2 years of my career somewhere where we did something that had never been done in that city. And in my opinion, it's definitely one of the most passionate cities in American sports, but I think it's one of the best sports cities, man. And so excuse me for enjoying going back there, and I think that's what it comes down to is like, I'm going to go up to the game this week and I'm going to tailgate. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to see all the people I know. And part of it is too, like, I still played with guys on that team. Like, I was at Lane's house this week. I go over there on Tuesday nights and just hang out, eat dinner. Like, it's hard for me to divorce myself from those relationships. So it's not always about the team for me. It's about the people and the place. And Philly was amazing. So yeah, my heart's with Philly, but it was weird last week. Right before the game, our social team's posting a bunch of Philly shit because that does well. And also it's fun. And Aaron Donald, who was my little homie, is in the comments and he's like, "Don't forget your roots." He kind of big brothered me. And, that's like kind of going through my head during the game, like, damn, I am a Ram too, and I was a Ram for 8 years. But every place I played, I got a little piece of me that's very appreciative of it. And they were all different experiences.
Yeah, man. You and Robert Quinn with Greg Williams as the defensive coordinator. Y'all were a problem, dog. Y'all
We
were,
had a
man.
great D line, man. People always say, hey, like in Philly, people are always like, hey, this is the best D line you ever played on, right? And I'm like, not to be a buzzkill, but no, the best D line I ever played on was with Robert Quinn, Michael Brockers, William Hayes, Eugene Sims, like the whole group. Bunch of first rounders. I remember Robert Quinn had 19 and a half sacks one year when we went like 7-9. I think we had like 55 sacks a couple years. Like, we were just dominant. And Robert was probably the most talented rusher I ever played with. Aaron, his rush style was like, he was so unique, but Rob was born to rush the edge, like
Yeah.
to the point where he was pigeon-toed, so pigeon-toed, like the inside of his big toes touched when he just sat on the ground, like before meetings and would read his playbook, and we'd make fun of him. Like, he could run sideways. If he runs straight, he's running in a circle. And I'll never forget, like, watching him 6 inches off the ground, not break stride sideways is the most impressive thing I've ever seen that 19 sack season. So I take a lot of pride in that group, man. We still talk. We got a group text firing off all week, just like y'all have group texts with your buddies from different things you did. But it's a real bond there.
Yeah. So, we got a game coming up this weekend.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like a
Well, I've
collision of your
heard.
worlds. You're a Virginia guy, and everyone knows Virginia is Washington country. I'm sure that you got a bunch of
Mhm.
friends and fans who are Washington fans. You're an Eagles guy, and we've got that NFC Championship matchup, man. So where are you at with that now? Like what's your analysis?
Yeah.
What are your emotions around it? Give us the whole picture.
Well, the first thing I'd ask, I need y'all's advice. I was able to kind of weasel my way into a suite this weekend, and I got a number of tickets. And I got some buddies I grew up with who are all Commanders fans, and they've been talking shit since Saturday night at 10 p.m. Right. Uh, and so they're very confident, as they should be. And a few of them are coming to the game, or we're talking about it, and they were like, "We don't want to get spit on by Eagles fans, and we don't want to get beat up." And I said, "Well," they go, "Can I get in the suite?" And I said, "Well, I got one request: no Commanders gear. Am I being fair?"
Oh, I would absolutely take you up on that. What?
Okay.
You want a suite? Yes. That's I want to be in a suite anyway. It's cold out there, dog.
It's so cold, dude.
Right?
And
Yeah.
you never know who you get to see, man. Like, up there at suite level, like Bradley Cooper was up there like 2 weeks ago. He was on the other side. but like, you run into all types of people. So the people watching is great. I think I'm being very fair. Okay, good to have the
I
reinforcement.
think if you were in Jacksonville or something, bro, maybe you feel differently about that. But you have the elements and legitimately, like you said, like they're asking for protection. Like they're
Yes,
legitimately asking for shelter
I am
from the Philly
protecting them.
crowd. Like, and
Yeah.
you're protecting them. So, like on my terms, you are welcome into the safety of the suite.
That's it. That's all. And hopefully, for my sake, I don't have to protect him leaving the stadium because that would mean that the Commanders won. Now, my analysis of the game goes as follows. I think it's going to be a very good game. I think there's a good chance it's going to be a one-score game late, especially with the way Jayden has played. First off, I think he's remarkable. I think this dude, to me, the maturity, the ball placement, the deep ball, the run game that comes off of everything they do, how good they are on third and fourth down and money downs. Like this guy's like a 10-year vet. Now, that's not to say, as we discussed offline, that there might not be like a second-year slump at some point, but there's a wide range of what you might call a slump. And if he's a little bit worse next year, he'll still be fucking elite. That's how good he's been this year. I always talk about like there's 4 guys in the NFL that can win in any weather. And I don't mean like weather, I mean whatever the context around them. And we know who those are: Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Joe. The 5th guy, is like the Tetris piece where you're like, who's going to be the 5th guy? And there's guys that have flirted with it. I think this guy, if you're judging by his rookie season, is going to be that 5th guy. And he might be better than a couple of those guys in that group. And so, I've been joking to Eagles fans this week, hey, get him while you can, because he's a rookie now and you're going to have to deal with him for the next 10 to 15 years. I think the game comes down to, for Washington, when they have the ball, how much can they take advantage of Nakobe Dean's backup, Oren Burks? I think that showed up in the run game last week against the Rams, and I think Cliff will try to take advantage of him. I think when Zach Bond like kind of leaves the core and you end up with Oren Burks all alone, behind the defensive line, you kind of got to worry about them attacking him, and the quarterback run stuff that killed him in the first game. So I think on that side of the ball, it comes down to Jayden Daniels. On the other side of the ball, I really think it does come down to, can you stop the run? And Jonathan Allen's back. That's a big deal. I think you're going to have a hard time covering down on all these guys, but you got to be able to do it. And so I think looking back at the second game, Washington winning that game with 5 turnovers is one of the most impressive things I saw all year. Now, the Eagles had to make some mistakes for that to happen, and Jalen leaving the game mattered. If Jalen's not healthy this week, then you take the quarterback run game out of the conversation and the game changes. As you saw, y'all were able to stop the run in the second matchup when he left. And you heard Joe Witt today. I don't know if you heard Joe Witt, the defensive coordinator today, saying we're going to hit him like a running back if he's going to decide to run the football, which is kind of like declaring war. It's kind of like firing the first shot. And I don't have a problem with him saying it, because as a player, I would be trying to hit him like a running back if he were to take off. But guess who else runs the football a lot? Jayden Daniels. And you better believe the defense for the Eagles heard that soundbite too. So I think it's going to be chippy. I think getting Lattimore back, after the trade, like him being healthy, that's something we don't know what that's going to look like in this matchup. So I'm really excited about it, man. It should be a great game.
Yeah. I definitely think it's going to be a good one too. I'm, and this isn't even me being a fanboy anymore. I legitimately think the Commanders are going to win, because I honestly did not think the Commanders were going to beat Detroit. Detroit was my pick to make it out the NFC, right?
Yeah.
So this isn't just me just being delusional. But even if I was delusional, fuck it, we're in the NFC Championship.
Yeah.
Now is not the time to be sane and measured. I'm here for the
No,
for a good
dude.
time, dog, But yeah, but I'm with you on what you said about Jayden and those other quarterbacks that you grouped him with, because I think that it is a very simple question to pose to yourself on if your team has a guy at quarterback. And that question is, do we have a chance to win with this guy at quarterback? Any
Because
game
of
that we go
him.
to? Yes, because of him. Just no other qualifiers. No, if our defense shows up, if we get the running game going, if it's just as simple as saying we always have a chance to win because of our quarterback. And I think Jayden is in that class with the Lamars and with the Mahomes and with the Burrows and with the Josh Allens, like you mentioned. And I think that's a very elite class. Like, I don't think Philly fans feel that way about Jalen Hurts.
No, they don't, and they probably shouldn't. I mean, but I still think you can win with Jalen, like, win because of, like, I think the Eagles have the best roster probably remaining top to bottom in the dance, but they probably have the fourth best quarterback. And that's not to say there aren't three other damn good ones. I just listed what I think of them. I think Jalen, with his history, having gone toe to toe with Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, he's capable. It's in his body. He's been through a few coordinators. Obviously, the injury is going to matter, but the passing game has just not been a thing they've had to access. And I'm all for people talking about, hey, the passing game hadn't been good enough, but let's just keep it a bean. It hasn't had to be. And if you end up in a game where it is a shootout, we'll see. And in that first game, the Eagles were in the second game, the Eagles were still able to move the ball with those backups. And early in the game, before Luvu, knocked Jalen out of the game, they were moving the football. So I do feel like this week they're going to be able to turn it on. I'm not saying it's got to be like 35, 34 if you want to win this game, but you might have to get up in the high 20s. And this defense is really good right now. And one of the biggest things is y'all lost Sam Cosmi, the guard who'd been playing really well for y'all this year, and he's out with an ACL. So, Jalen Carter is as dominant as anybody left in the playoffs, save for Chris Jones up front. That's going to be one that's going to matter a great deal.
Do you guys want to have a staring contest via Zoom to figure out who's gonna win? I feel like we're split. We got a pick for the Eagles and a pick for the Commanders. I don't know.
I'm gonna go Eagles 24-21. I mean, it could be higher scoring, but I think it's gonna come down to the last possession. And listen, we saw the Rams march up and down the field in the snow last week. So, and they were without Quignon, who left early in the game. But I do worry about a scenario where you need to defend against the touchdown late in the game, and these guys are in 2-minute mode. They do such a good job. I don't know if you guys know that, notice this watching them, but playing the numbers game, they'll split, two stacks way out there, and it makes you declare defensively what you're doing, and it also lightens the box. And that's going to be a big thing for the Eagles is they're going to spread you out. You got to stop the run with 5-6 guys at times in the box. And so I'm a little bit worried, man. I keep telling Eagles fans, they're like, what do you think is going to happen? I'm like, I think it's going to be a tough game. And they look disappointed, but it just is what it is. This team is so young and inexperienced in some ways, mixed with the veteran leadership they have, like Zach Ertz, Luvu, Wagner. The young guys don't know any better. And that's a dangerous thing. Jayden Daniels doesn't know any better. He doesn't know he's not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you get a hot team like this, you never know what can happen.
Yeah, I for sure think the Eagles are the better squad, but in the playoffs, bro, that doesn't mean much in NFL playoffs. Oftentimes, it's about who's got the hot hand, right?
Exactly.
And the Commanders have won 7 straight. Like you said, they've got some youngins there who don't know they're not supposed to be there. We've seen Super Bowls get won by teams that had a hot hand at the right time, like Eli's Giants,
Yeah.
Flacco's Ravens, right? The better team doesn't often win out in these scenarios. So that's why I'm going Commanders, dog.
It's not who you play, it's when you play them. That's really a truism in the NFL.
Yeah, and if you're playing your best ball in January, bro, that's a really, really good sign.
They got to avoid the penalties. I looked at who the officials are for this game. I know this is some kind of inside baseball stuff.
I love that. That's great.
But Sean Hockley's the official. He's got the highest and second highest race of holding in the NFL.
I was about to say we're gonna get a lot of holding calls on 30-yard passes.
That's right. And naturally that does favor the Eagles because they have such a good group up front. The Commanders had 2 games with this crew, and they committed half of their offensive holding penalties, and they just lost Cosmi. So, you kind of have to worry about those. You remember they spent the whole damn game, I think it was against Atlanta in 1st and 20. You just can't be in those situations.
Do you feel like Jayden's style too of, okay, read, pull it down, I'm running? I mean, you have to feel like that makes it harder on an offensive line too, with a crew that's more likely to throw holding if they don't know what direction the quarterback's going in all the time.
I think there's something to that. I think honestly that applies in some ways more for Patrick Mahomes because when you watch Mahomes, he drifts anywhere from 12 yards, 9 yards, his drop point, which is usually 7-8 yards. He'll be wherever. And I think for those guys, it can be difficult. Jayden's he's got really good pocket poise and he's really decisive. That's what I like. The clock goes off. He's not going to throw an interception. He's not going to take any risks, which is for a young guy thing that's amazing. And then, like he's really smart at finding that lane too. And then when you add in the design runs, like the way they ice the Bucks with that little rollout, they've run that a couple times this year. They ran it last week, I think, against Detroit in a key situation. It's just too tough to defend. That's the guy that you can't account for,
Chris, you were a defensive lineman. I'm not sure if everyone else knows that, but talk about penalties and even not penalties, like rushing a quarterback that's mobile. They always talk about, oh, keep him in the pocket, like stay wide or whatever. Like how does true is that? And like, how does your approach change from game to game, even within mobile quarterbacks or mobile to
Yeah.
not mobile? Like how's your approach change there?
That's a great question because as many sacks as I had in the NFL, I missed a ton, and I always had trouble with the more athletic guys, and we used to joke about it, and I'd be like, "Damn, all right, this week we got a lawn deer. Like this is a good thing. Like we got like Phillip Rivers." And then I used to hate like playing. And then there's certain guys that are athletic, but they'll give you buckets like Russell Wilson. Like Russ Russ is still feeding my family. I used to sack Russell Wilson so much it got boring. And like that was a
That's my
deal.
favorite thing about you, Chris. I really love as a
Sacking Russell
49er fan. Just love watching you sack Russell Wilson.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, then we played cap and I'd be like, damn, I could have had 4 this game, and somebody else is eating off you or whatever. But, I think it varies from quarterback to quarterback, right? Because of those drop targets, all athletic quarterbacks are not the same. And all mobile, immobile quarterbacks are not the same. Like for instance, Tom Brady, he was really tough to sack. Now he can run not even a little bit. He was tough to sack because he would climb the pocket. So he, for him, it was really important to have good stout guard play, and he would get the ball out. Now there's some guys that, can't move and they're going to take all day. I think with Mahomes, for instance, a lot of coaches will be like, hey, just power rush, cage, whatever. And you could run right down the center of the tackle, but he's setting for an 8-yard drop target. And if this guy's at 12, now all you are an edge player and a run play where the quarterback can go wherever he wants to go. And so you have to be careful about that. We had plans like where you have to have a balance up guy. You get the 3 techniques going to get vertical. He's going to have the one-on-one. If you don't have the one-on-one, if you get the slide your way, you have to balance up. And that means that guy's going to be patty caking to the line. So, it definitely depends. With Lamar Jackson, we've talked about this at length on our show. Like, how would you rush him? I think he's a guy that you have to rush. You have to attack him, because if you give him all day, how many times has he just broken somebody's back 30 seconds into a play? You think about the Cincinnati play in the red zone where he's stiff arming Sam Hubbard and he's just buying time and his eyes are down the field. So everybody's different. You can't fall into the trap of not being aggressive, though. And I think most guys will tell you that.
And does it change? I know they talk about with Jayden a lot specifically that when he rolls out to his right, he's more to pass, and to his left, he's usually tucking it and running. Does that mean that the ends on either side are probably approaching that differently?
Yes, for sure. I mean, if you're to the quarterback's ball hand side, you can't let him, especially like somebody like Josh, break the pocket right with a full head of steam and threaten the flat player as he climbs towards the line of scrimmage. And he never has to break stride to throw the ball. When you roll away from your ball hand side, it's a whole deal to stop your feet and throw the ball. There's not many guys that can kill you the same way. So we used to do coordinated rushes like, hey, one end's going high, one end's going power, or one end's taking the up and under. We call it fish hook. And because I was a slower guy, it was always me with the power, and Robert Quinn was the run around the edge guy, and he'd make the play. And so that's the point, is like somebody's got to flush him and somebody's got to run him down. And oftentimes we would flush a guy to his ball hand side, invite him to think he's escaping the pocket because that looks like a bag of money to him. But Robert Quinn, who runs a 4.5, is running a 10-yard hoop. So, you can play games with it too.
You as a defensive lineman, how do you feel about the increasingly shrinking strike zone in which you are allowed to contact the quarterback? Like I have a friend who's a D lineman who literally told me, he's like, I honestly wish they'd just put a fucking red penny on him and say if we hit him with 2 hands, they're sacked. So
Yeah.
that we don't have the thing of like, you got a 350-pound guy who's shoving his fist in your throat. You get around him and fall towards the quarterback, sack him 2 inches below the
Too
knee.
low.
Yeah.
And I think the knee things, when that happened, that was the Brady thing, right? When he got hurt in training camp. So that changed things. I think the high hits definitely like got a little bit more pronounced. as my career went on. Like I look back at some hits that I made and like we made back in the day, and I guess I'm old enough now to say back in the day, but like they would be so fucking illegal now. And they were things that people would call us dirty. And we were just playing. We were playing hard. We were playing to punish you. But now you really have to be careful about that stuff. And I think where it mostly changed for me was the strike zone shrinking is one thing, but when you couldn't land on the guy anymore,
Right.
that's a really tough proposition, especially for guys that are trying to hit a moving target that are oftentimes coming in out of control that just want to get the guy down. A perfect form tackle is now a penalty in the pocket. So I think that's that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I remember my last year, I suplexed, I don't know who it was it Matt Ryan? And I got a penalty and I thought it was like a perfect hit. But you know, I landed on it and I was like, maybe it's time for me to go, man. Like it's just not what it once was. But at the same time, when you watch a playoff game and like Joe Webb starting or
Yeah,
something,
for sure.
then everybody's like, this sucks. So as a player, I hated it, but as a businessman and somebody
Right.
who's like now an analyst, like we do have to protect the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
There just can't like those two calls last week with Mahomes. The Will Anderson one, he did not hit him in the head,
Just didn't hit him in the head.
but when I watched in real time, I thought it was a penalty, and that's as a defensive lineman because I'm
Yeah.
so cued into knowing where the hot stove is.
Right.
And you know, like when Will Anderson says after the game, we knew it was us against the refs, and I love Will, but if I was his coach, what I'd say is if you know that you got a free run at the guy, lower your strike zone, and it's the same thing. Actually, the second penalty to me was cut and dry, whether you like it or not. Just don't risk hitting him in the head. Don't risk your elbow hitting him in the head. Don't risk your helmet hitting him in the head. Does the rule suck? Yeah. Does it suck the guy can just drop out of thin air beyond the line of scrimmage? Yes, but it's the reality we live in. So what are we arguing? Are we arguing about what we should do or what it should be like?
Yeah.
What we should do is try to play smart football. And I think, again, we talk about the Chiefs getting calls and that sort of thing. They're one of the most well-coached teams in the league. So, you know, it does not surprise me that come playoff time, they're doing less of the stupid shit. I went back over the last day and a half sitting on the Amtrak down from Philly and watched every penalty that opponents of the Chiefs were issued over the last two Super Bowl runs. I could only find disagreement with like 1.5. You know, a lot of those situations, I'll give you an example. Osai hitting him out of bounds when he played Cincinnati. You remember that?
Yeah.
It was a fucking penalty. It was a dumbass play. You know, like, and everybody's all mad that they call it, but I'm like, be mad at the guy for fucking up the moment by doing something dumb.
Yeah.
You know,
I would say the only one I mean I agree with
Bradbury.
you. Like the ref shit is always overblown. The one thing I don't like that Pat Mahomes does, I feel like Josh Allen does it some, is
They both do.
going to the sideline, easing up to bait the guy into the contact to draw the 15-yard flag. You know, like, and it reminds me, we talk more NBA on our show. It very much reminds me of the like jumping sideways into the guy to get the foul call that eventually
Yes.
the refs sort of correct their way out of, just because everyone's distaste for it grew to the point that they had to legislate
And last
it
week
out.
he did that shit and they didn't call it, you know,
Right.
which to me was a good thing. It's like, and I think it's so easy when you see a team in prime time and you feel so viscerally that you hate the team, which I understand. Like we grew up with the Yankees, we grew up with the Cowboys, we grew up the Patriots, like, but they're trying to get these calls right. I think some people like really think the game is fixed. And I can tell you it's not. Like when you go back and watch these calls, I'm telling you, I watched all the opponent penalties. And it's just not what people make it to be. Now, when you're great, you're gonna get some calls. Like Josh Allen flops, he gets calls. Patrick Mahomes flops, he gets calls. It's not just Patrick Mahomes. And if you watch every game every Sunday, there's a terrible call in every game.
Of
But
course.
because the Chiefs are in prime time, everybody's like, "Up, yep, every time." I'm like, oh yeah, every time you watch them, it's the only fucking game you're watching.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
So
I've always been on the side that you know if a ref fucks your team over, just give it some time. They'll fuck the other team over too. It
they're gonna
always
fuck the
balances
other team
itself
over
out.
too.
Yeah, you know, I'm a
It ain't
firm believer in
personal.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
like
funny.
like we saw last week with the Commanders and the Lions when Goff got his shit cracked on that pick six. missed call, and then they had a phantom face mask, for Detroit's favor. Then like the scales always balance out, bro.
They do balance out. It's always tough in a vacuum if it's a big game to say, hey, that sucked. I mean, for Eagles fans, that Bradbury hold was borderline, like, and that definitely affected the outcome of the game. But I also think there's a ton of bad calls every week.
Yeah, I mean, especially you talk about holding or the pass interference back and forth. It's like expecting people to get that right at the speed that the game is happening is kind of nuts. I mean,
Right.
it's just
And my buddy Dr. Fax on my pod, bro, don't get him going. He gets so mad about like they should just be able to correct every mistake. Like, when they started doing the replay assist, he's like, they could do that for everything. I'm like, well, the problem is once you start to enforce a standard that anything that is a foul is called, we're gonna have the slowest game in America.
Yeah.
You think baseball's slow? Once you start going back and litigating things in retrospect, every break in the game, we could have 22 people watching every fucking player individually, and the play would stop every play.
Yeah.
And then people would be like, well, the officiating's perfect, but nobody's watching football. And I also think the imperfection is kind of fun. We love how much engagement does the NFL get during a TV timeout when there's a review? I mean, it's awesome. It's like all eyes are on the product. And, I think the imperfection can sometimes add a little bit of drama.
I agree with that. I mean, from the baseball perspective, people always complain about the umpires. Someone did a study that was like 99.2% of calls are correct on ball or strike or something. I go like, I could make you an argument that's the greatest achievement in human history.
It's amazing. Especially with the movement on those pitches and all that.
Yes.
And,
Yes. And the fact that the strike zone is a theoretical concept, it's like
not real.
Right.
I've never seen a strike zone.
Right.
So
Yeah, but it's the same thing with the NFL guys. It's just like you watch two martial, MMA fighters going and then determine which one of them held.
mhm.
And if you get that right, you get that wrong one time out of 100. Congratulations, like
No
you earned
question.
an honorary doctorate.
No question. So yeah, I think what the NFL could do to fix it is start paying these officials better and make them do this job and only this job. Like, I can't believe that some of those guys, I don't know if this is an antiquated take, if now they're just doing it primarily, but there was a point, and I think it still is, where the officials are doing other shit.
Yeah.
Like, it should be really competitive, and it should be the only thing you're doing.
And that is it's the weird thing with the length of the season, because the NBA and Major League, those are full-time employees. There's the mandated training is huge. There's laws
Yeah.
around what they're allowed to travel, all this other kind of stuff. And the NFL, there's a lot of NFL referees you could buy a house from because they're a realtor the other 6 months a
Yeah.
year. Like, well, I mean, that's that I do think it's better.
Carl
And I think there's
Cheffers
more
is like,
training, but yeah.
Carl Cheffers is like some sales guru.
Yeah.
It's like fucking crazy.
Dude,
man.
one time my friends and I were staying at an Airbnb that the owner was someone in the Hockey League family. We were like, what the hell? That's crazy.
No way.
Yeah, I swear to God, it was nuts.
Do you think they had fucking cameras in there?
Good question.
That Airbnb camera thing kind of freaks you out, doesn't
I
it?
hope not.
I'm a big believer in like, whatever. Like, what are you gonna do with it? What are you gonna do with it? It's kind of like China's seeing my text. Well, whatever. What are you
Yeah.
gonna do with it? It's not a big
I do
deal.
think for our generation, the concept of privacy is very funny, because I think for those of us who remember life before the internet, we're like, well, when the internet started, well, there's no such thing as privacy.
Ain't
from
no
that
privacy.
right?
There's no privacy, bro.
Yeah.
So
Whenever someone's text leak, and they're like, well, what would happen if your guys' text leaked? It's just like, I text John and Tyler the exact way we talk on the podcast, because
That's
we're on the
exactly right.
podcast in my head. Like,
we're also very trained to only say things that like we say things in public all the time. So like we kind of the same way probably in private.
Yeah.
It's just who you are.
all right, Chiefs, Bills. Oh, go ahead, Tyler.
No, I was gonna ask him, who he had in the AFC title game.
Oh, I got the Bills.
Ooh.
I got the
Spicy.
Bills. I'm kind of married to the take that eventually you just kind of you feel good about a matchup. I thought like, yeah, they beat them in the regular season, that whole thing. Chiefs have a corner up who wasn't up in that game. That definitely is going to help. But I look at this and I say like, hey, which quarterback has played better this year? Like in games where they have to score 28, 30 points, like the Chiefs have not been stressed a great deal this season. listen, are they incredible? Absolutely. But the referee is also Clete Blakeman, who they're 5-6 straight up with him as the referee. You hear that? 54% of the penalties get called against the home teams. Home teams are 5-11 this year when Clete Blakeman calls a game. The Bills are 6-2 with him. Guys, this is a Bills spot. Who's going to cover Dalton Kincaid? You know, that's the thing about the Bills. They got guys all over the field. They don't have a true number one. And people, it's funny because people wanted to say Josh didn't have any talent around him to start the season. They were saying, like, hey, the Bills are in this rebuild. And now, if you didn't like him for MVP, you say, well, he's got Shakir, he's got Cooper, he's got Coleman, he's got Kincaid, he has the running backs. Well, yeah, everybody's elevated because he's playing so well. And I also think Joe Brady's done a great job. They got a great offensive line coach in Aaron Cromer. The run game's been a huge part of it. I just think in this game, they have a slight advantage of if this game had to be a higher scoring game, it's in favor of the Bills. Now the defense isn't great. Safety play's not great. They play big in big spots like last week, but they also there's a bunch of plays like last week where you're like, damn, they were dead to rights in that situation. Either Baltimore didn't take advantage of it, or they did and they didn't get 7 out of it. Like when they hit that big shot down the field to Bateman before the half, and they come up with just a field goal. Well, you got to give Buffalo some credit there. Like they know when to tighten up and make big plays. The turnovers, that punch out in midfield. So I'm really interested to see how this game plays out, but I will be putting my money on the Bills.
So 4th time's the charm for you, basically.
Yeah, dude. Because in the past, the Chiefs were a better team.
Mhm.
You know, like last year, the Chiefs defense was incredible. I mean, like, hey, and I picked the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl last year when people told me I was crazy. People told me they were done. But it's because they had that great defense and they could overcome certain things. The defense this year is very good, but they're not as good as they were. And I think they're gonna have a hard time getting Josh off the field on 3rd down.
Yeah, you made some really good points, but I'm still going Chiefs because, you know, like I said, you're making a lot of sense here, but nothing about the Chiefs makes sense, dog. They're just gonna win. You know,
No.
that's just where I'm at with them, bro. Like
Wouldn't
they're
shock me.
16-1. Yeah, you know, they're a 16-1 team, and we're not gonna look at that team as an all-time great team. I think we're gonna look at that team as a testament to just how that Chiefs system is clicking, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not gonna go down in the history books as an all-time great team, but I do have them winning the Super Bowl. I think they're going to get past Buffalo. I think that Spags is probably going to scheme up another beauty, and Mahomes is just going to make all the throws he needs to, all the conversions, all the TDs. I think it's just going to come down to that, bro. Like I said, I just got to see the Chiefs get knocked off their shit to believe it, bro.
Yeah, no, and I totally understand that, and certainly I've been a big fan of their greatness, kind of spectating it over a couple years. I've never been one to be like, hey, they're overrated, they're fraudulent. Like you can tell the way I defend the officiating thing that I really respect what they have, but it's so hard to win 3 of these in a row. Statistically, it'd be a huge anomaly just to play this well in the playoffs consecutively. Hey, but if they win this game, they're going to match up pretty well against whoever they play. And that's why I thought personally, I thought the winner of Baltimore and Buffalo was kind of the Super Bowl favorite. So
What's your
we'll
take
see.
on Spags? I'm curious because I feel like we've reached a point with him and the broadcast. I mean, he's obviously a great defensive coordinator, but the broadcasts are talking about him and the timing of these blitzes that he's Michael Jordan. They're like, Spags has done it again. Can you? There's no doubt this time he's going to dial up the perfect pressure.
Did you
It's
see
like,
what he
Jesus.
did to CJ last week?
He's
Yeah.
great, but I'm just like, we're
Edge,
talking about him.
linebackers blitz,
Their
like-
offensive line is trash. We're just talking about him like he is the greatest brain in defensive football history. It's kind of crazy to me.
He's pretty great. I mean, like that's a tough defense to plan. Everybody has to be really sound. Like you have to know a lot of different rules. You have to play with gap technique. You know, like you really have to be. It's not like a fuck around, run up the field, wreak havoc defense. For Chris Jones, it is, but everybody else's job is clean this guy up. And so I just think Spags is a great coordinator. He showed it over time. Like, and it's not always that he's had the most talented defenses. You know, there's some guys that, you know, if the Chiefs and the Eagles played in the Super Bowl, how many players outside of Chris Jones are you taking over the player that plays that position for the Eagles defense? Like the Eagles have a lot of talent. Chiefs are talented, but like you said, timely pressure. You know, he has some staples. He's also just one of the best pressure designers, like not just when to come with pressure, but like every pressure has a little story. Like if you watch it, things make sense. People, I hate the stats, and this is one of
That's
the problems
cool.
with analytics, where it's like, hey, this player is this good against the blitz, so we shouldn't blitz him. Well, if the sample size includes a bunch of shitbird D coordinators who are bringing safeties from like 10 yards off the line
Right.
of scrimmage
Right.
and just kind of playing patty cake with, yeah, it's an extra rusher, but it ain't the same as Spags, seeing that you're in a condensed formation, you're varying the look, and you're going to bring edge pressure. I thought the CJ Stroud, kind of third quarter, they had the drive of the year out of the half. And then Spags was like, all right, let's stop fucking around. And he just turned the dial. And it was amazing to me that they blitzed him, I think, 7 plays in a row, 10 of 18 in the second half on dropbacks. And that 4th and 10 was so fucking confusing to me. Why D'Amico rushed them up to the line when they haven't picked up a free runner all year and snapped the ball with 3 seconds to go on the shot clock there. I mean, it's like, and that's what the Chiefs do. They let other people make mistakes.
We
So
talked
many of their
about that on
wins,
the
the
pod.
other team fucks up.
Yes, they rushed 2 plays on like a fourth, and then like late in the first half, and that's how good you have to play to beat the Chiefs. Is you could point to the 2 times that they really fucked up, and they paid super hard for them both times. Yeah,
Every team has a chance to beat the Chiefs. When you play close games like this, you can point to any game and be like, that was their chance. And it can be obvious like Denver. Or it could be like the first Houston matchup after Tank Dell got hurt. They got to stop on 4th down. They're at midfield. And you got a fresh set of downs, a chance to go up in the game, field position. Here's what Houston did. They fucked up a screen, and then Dalton Schultz drops an out. Like he just drops the ball. And that was your chance. And that's the thing. You never know when your moment is in the NFL, like that moment of truth. And sometimes it comes early in the game, sometimes it comes late. But when you play the Chiefs, the crack in the door is like this big. You got to get through it. And if you don't, you're fucked.
16-1, and 12 of those wins were 1 possession games.
They're good at this stuff.
Yeah. They know how to win, man.
Should we do one batshit non-football topic?
Love it.
Okay. I got a tweet here. I sent this to the Jenkins and Jonez group chat from Brian Johnson. He's an anti-aging guru who is raising his son on anti-aging guru shit. Brian Johnson tweeted, nighttime erection data from my 19-year-old son and me. His duration is 2 minutes longer than mine. Raise children to stand tall, be firm, and be upright. And he's got like a little Apple Watch thing here with number of erection episodes, total duration, average erection quality, and then also sleep efficiency, which seems a little like the odd man out in those metrics.
So to him, boners, it's like the pyramid of health. The bottom is boners. And then like sleep is somewhere out here. How about fucking, I mean, that's his 19-year-old son. I have so many questions. Number one, does your son's, how bad do you not want to pay your own rent, son, that you're living with your dad who's measuring your boners? Like that to me is just insane how little this kid wants to get a fucking job. Like, dude, get a job, escape your captor, and stop letting him measure your boners. This is not normal. It's not normal.
Boner metrics. That's crazy.
That's crazy, dude.
Boner metric. Like, yeah, that's
what's up with all these guys now on the internet where they all got some fucking something like this to say and they put it on Instagram is a cesspool of this now.
It's crazy.
This guy drinks his own piss. I'm like, bro, like I'm just over
for efficiency.
Like, no, it's like for health. I'm like, dude, if I see another person just making some shit up on Instagram, I'm gonna lose my mind. Lose my mind.
Yep. Hey, I coach my 11-year-old son in baseball, and I showed that tweet to my wife, and it was like, hitting off the tee when it's cold outside seems super fucking normal now, doesn't it?
Yeah. I'm not that bad.
Yeah.
And why is he comparing himself to his son? Like that's weird as fuck too. Like what? I was 2 minutes sturdier than my son. What the fuck? What are you doing, dude? Why?
That you can't just let this guy be great. You can't let him be great. You have to rain on his parade.
Up, son. Literally, like
yeah.
Don't tell his son step his dick up. Come on, dog.
That's insane, dude. So just what I've realized is people are just crazy. Most people are just crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
we have assumed because we grew up in a world where you did not have an X-ray into what everyone's thoughts were around you. We have a presumed level of sanity that was probably always not justified.
I never thought I was naive.
Yeah,
I think we were all a little naive.
there
Like,
was
even if
nothing
we
we
were the
more
most
naive
the
about
most
than our own
cynical of
naivete.
us,
Yeah,
we're still naive.
very naive. We were and naive about our naivete, as it turns out.
Dude.
Yeah,
Fuck, dude. Guys
yeah.
measuring his fuck.
Where did is that app in the app store? Like there's a boner app. Like where did you even get that?
I
shit?
actually,
I have so many
I
questions.
apologize for this. I did follow this rabbit hole down. So this dude is like obsessed with anti-aging. This is like his
Right.
thing.
I've
And
seen
so
this guy, yeah.
So he does like fucking 30 blood tests a month on himself for like telomere length and like all this other shit. And his son,
What's his name?
Brian Johnson with a
Brian
BRY.
Brian.
Oh, how could I forget a name like Brian Johnson? That sounds so fucking fake.
He named his son
Be right.
Talmadge Johnson.
Yeah.
And so
Oh, I know this guy.
You've
his
seen him,
son
right?
is
I've
the
seen
is
him,
the
yeah.
blood
Yeah.
purifier, but yes, that he's like given and he's donated his blood to his dad to help with his anti-aging and stuff.
Okay,
Okay,
listen.
yeah.
I just if this
Okay.
I know I've seen this guy take pictures and be like, "Look at me. I'm 54." And I'm like, "You look like a weird 60." Like just because that's what people need to realize is like aging gracefully is like actually cool. Like fighting aging gracefully is what's uncool. And if you end up looking like Brian Johnson,
Brian
you
Johnson
scare
looks like
everybody.
he belongs in Total Recall. Like he doesn't look like he belongs on Earth.
He looks like somebody's gonna come out of his stomach, like in Total
Right,
Recall.
right.
Yeah. He doesn't look healthy. I'll tell you that much.
Well, you haven't fucking seen his telomeres, buddy.
I haven't seen
You
his
know,
boners.
he's got the
Haven't
long.
seen- haven't seen all that data.
This guy, this guy.
Sounds like you don't know how high quality his erections are, Chris.
Yeah. He's sitting there with a fucking radiation helmet measuring his meat. Look at his little helmet. The first immortal human.
Yeah, so that was my favorite response someone had on Twitter was going meat for meat on the timeline with your teenage son is wild.
Meat for meat.
Just that's what bonding looks like these days, guys. Used to sit and watch a ball game with your dad, and now
We're doing it all wrong, man. I guess. Yeah.
what are the rules? Like, here's what is it like one of those things where how does he prepare? Does he get to prepare himself in private? You know what I mean? I don't want to know.
I don't know. There was a line at which I decided I didn't want more
Thank you.
information.
Thank you
but
for
it was-
not crossing that line.
Yeah, it was further down the rabbit hole than it probably should have been. But there was
Brian
a line.
Johnson.
Yeah, Brian.
A total
Johnson.
fake name.
Yeah.
He looks like a guy from Star Trek. He looks like the guy from Star Trek.
Yeah, the little yellow skin motherfucker. I know exactly.
Yeah, a
what
little
you're
yellow
talking
skin
about, man.
Keebler elf looking motherfucker.
Yeah.
Calling him a weird 60. I still can't get over it.
Oh, weird sick.
A weird
Bro,
60.
You're not a
kills
healthy
me.
52.
Nah,
Your
Ryan.
thing is not right.
Yeah, I for sure seen this dude because he'll be like, "Yeah, I slept in a hyperbaric chamber. I've
Yeah.
only eaten like raw kidney beans,
Yep.
and my internal organs are aged like 48, and I'm 52." I'm like, "Motherfucker, that's not worth it." Like,
Also,
what are you
your
doing
life
here?
sucks.
Yeah.
Like I just had a fucking joint. I'm gonna pack a Zen in a little bit. If I want to eat some Mexican food, I'm gonna eat it later. And then I'm gonna get on the treadmill in the morning like a normal human being and just try to balance it out. You're gonna live a 400 years and it's gonna be the worst quality of life ever.
Yeah. I remember when we had a lot of fun with it on this podcast, but when the like conservative male thing became like sun tanning your taint or whatever, just being like, I'm cool. Like I actually kind of like being sad.
I'll take a vitamin D pill.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I don't mind not being happy if that's what the cost of that is. Like I can just be sad. I'll listen to some fucking Neil Young and like
Yeah.
that's a cool Wednesday to me, bro. Like I
Yep.
don't need to get my ass
I don't need
straight
to
up
be in
at
a
the sun.
tanning bed with my butt cheeks spread like Mike Honcho.
All right, Chris, thanks so much for hopping on.
And they
with
all have
us.
so many followers. What the fuck, dude?
I know.
I'm like, what is come out? All right.
People need the update on the fucking erection quality. They're like,
Oh.
they've got notifications turned on, probably. Chris, thanks for joining us. Good luck to your Eagles. Have fun in the suite. Let us know. I'm curious to see how that works out with the no commanders. Gear
Well,
with your
I'll
friends.
find out with my boys. Shout out to Bernie and Keith.
Okay,
So,
Bernie and Keith, do the right thing. You don't want to
do
be
the
out
right
there in the elements at the link. You know, when Jayden's driving the ball with 2 minutes left to win that game, you would rather be in the suite wearing a
fucking some
black
neutral ass
Q-zip.
colors. Yeah.
Bernie and
Neutral ass
Keith,
colors.
my brothers in burgundy and gold.
My brothers in burgundy. Hey, good
Yeah,
luck. Good luck this weekend.
Hey, we gonna spank them boys. I'm telling you, man.
What do we get a
telling
little? What kind of bet we get here? You and I we'll work on the terms on the phone. We'll text and figure it out.
For sure. We'll figure some shit out. I'll do it on my shit, you know, or you know, you'll do it on your shit.
Yes,
if you're
perfect.
wrong. So
2 nights,
figure it out.
2 nights of sleep with the erection measuring.
No!
In the Johnson household.
No, dude. I'm gonna hurt that guy if he comes near me. You want to find out how to not be immortal? I'll fuck around and get away from me, Brian. All right, y'all.
All right, thanks,
I appreciate
man.
you,
That was
dog.
great.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.